Hello from the Amazon. My name is Lani Gonzales, and I'm going to walk you through filing an insurance claim and optimizing the amount you receive from the insurance company without the use of a public adjuster and without an attorney. I'll also go through when you actually need to hire those people, and also I'll go through what you do when you receive a payment from the insurance company but you're unhappy with it and believe that you deserve more. After you file your claim, whether it's through the phone or online, the insurance company is going to send a field adjuster to your house. The field adjuster is the person who physically goes to your property and looks at the damage. There may be a separate person, a desk adjuster, who basically sits at a desk, looks at the paperwork, and makes the call about what's covered and what's paid. So this field adjuster might be a third-party field adjuster. It's a person who is an independent contractor, and they're not trained the same way an employee would be. They've used third-party field adjusters many times when there are thousands of claims and the employees are not enough to handle the claims. Why is this important? I will say most insurance companies want to do a good job. Most insurance companies do a good job. But when they have thousands of claims and are inundated and they're using third-party field adjusters, that's when the errors and the mistakes and the lack of attention to detail start to happen. So unfortunately, with these Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene claims, this is the time period when you start to see insurance companies slip up. So you want to be on your A game as well. So this field adjuster will come to your house, they'll take a look at the damage, they might ask you questions, but again, if you're not certain, I don't know, I am not an expert, I'd be happy to show you the areas of my house and you can make a decision. Those are still appropriate answers. You don't need to do any guesswork. So after the third-party field adjuster inspects your property, that person is going to give that information to the desk adjuster. That desk adjuster may ask additional information for you, may want a written statement, may want documentation. So this is the general process that an insurance company takes, and then they make a decision. And that decision may be to cover your claim, to deny your claim. They may give you money, but it may be insufficient. But while the insurance company is doing this, you are not supposed to be passively waiting for a decision. This is your home. This is your property. You should be taking steps to ensure that, number one, you mitigate your damages, making sure that there's no further damage or loss. So whether you need to remove a tree from your property, whether you need to remove a tarp, whether you need to mitigate water by, ripping out drywall and putting machines into your home to dry it out, these are all things that we should be doing. But a word of caution, before you throw anything away, before you tear anything out, before you demolish, make sure you take pictures. Also, a really, really important tip, and this is not just for insurance claims, this is for business in general. If it is not in writing, it never happened. I'm going to say this again. If it is not in writing, it never happened. What do I mean by that? If it's not in writing, it's your word against their word. Insurance companies maintain claim files or diaries about what happened, and so should you. So every time you make a phone call, send an email, hey, I called you and this is what happened. Every time a conversation happens between you and a field adjuster, a desk adjuster, or anyone from the insurance company, hey, we spoke on this day and this is what we discussed. If you need any information from me, any documents or any forms, please let me know. So that way we are documenting what happened and we're memorializing its accuracy, because if they believe it's wrong, they will challenge it. If they don't respond and attack anything as wrong, you can presume that what is in that email is as good as gold and is the truth. So let's say you have your estimates from the contractors you contacted, and the insurance company comes back and they send you a letter that says, hey, we've extended coverage. However, you have this deductible, so they'll subtract the amount of the deductible, and then here's the amount we're going to pay, and here's the estimate we're using based on the field adjuster's inspection of the property. What do you do if that's not enough money? Step 1. You contact the insurance company, make sure they have all of your estimates and say, hey, we received your letter, we received your payment, but we believe it's insufficient. We previously provided these estimates. Please consider whether there are additional amounts that are owed. And wait for the insurance company to respond. And when I say wait, you can email them, you can touch base with them. I'll contact them every single day by email until they respond. What happens if they don't respond? Or what happens if they say, hey, we think that what we paid is fair? You are entitled to a mediation sponsored by the Department of Financial Services. So the Department of Financial Services regulates the insurance industry. And you are allowed to ask for mediation where everybody comes down and sits together and tries to figure out what a good price is, whether you were paid the correct amount. This is free to you. Insurance companies are required to pay for this mediation. And what's good about these mediations is many times someone inside the insurance company will take a second look at your file and they will decide, is this worth it to fight? Should we go ahead and pay them additional amounts? So let's say we go through this mediation process, which is free to you, and you're still unhappy. An agreement could not be reached. You believe you're owed more money, but the insurance company doesn't want to pay it. We're going to take a look at your insurance policy, and there is a provision called the appraisal provision. Appraisal is a part of the insurance process if there is a disagreement regarding the amount of loss. So number one, they have to say, yes, there's coverage. And number two, there's a dispute regarding the amount that you are paid. So if there is a dispute, either party, your insurance company or yourself, are allowed to request appraisal. It has to be in your insurance policy, though. And what happens is the appraisers hire someone, and you hire someone, and those two people come together and they decide if you were paid the right amounts. And if those two people can't agree, they hire another person. It's a third person, an umpire. And an agreement between any three of those people will be binding. Many times, the insurance company will pay more money after appraisal. Many times, they'll even split the baby. Even if it looks like the insurance company was right, most people come out of appraisal getting payment. Yes, you do have to hire the appraiser. Yes, you do have to split the cost of the umpire, but that cost is cheaper than a public adjuster and cheaper than an attorney, and it is substantially faster than litigating a case and going to trial. Duties after loss. So when you file a claim, there is a portion of your insurance policy. It's in Section 1, Conditions, towards the beginning of the policy, called Duties After Loss. And it says that in an event of a loss, you must do the following. These are your duties. And if you don't do these things, the insurance company is allowed to deny your claim outright and claim prejudice, claim that because you didn't do these things, they weren't able to effectively investigate and pay your claim. So it requires you to give timely notice, provide documentation. Maybe it'll ask for a statement. One important thing to pay attention to is it may ask you for a sworn statement and proof of loss. A sworn statement and proof of loss is a form, and it provides information about your claim, when it happened, what you're seeking, and your signature and notarization. Some insurance policies require you submit this within 60 days from the date of loss, so the date of the storm. Even if they don't ask it, you're automatically required to. Some insurance companies only require you to do it if they ask for it. So take a look to see if you're required to submit this within 60 days of the loss. Even though all of that information that's requested is information you don't have, just do your best and you can supplement it or add to it later. So one thing I like to do when I write to an insurance company, I'll put in the end, if you need any additional information, records, documentation, forms, or a sworn statement and proof of loss, please let me know. Why? Because if you were supposed to submit one and they didn't ask for it or they didn't give you a form, you've asked them if they wanted it and they didn't say anything. So you can be proactive and you can bring it up, and you can always cover yourself by making sure that you are asking them, do you need anything else from me in order to move forward with this claim? So step one, let's take a look at your insurance policy. We don't need to look at the whole thing from cover to cover for now. Let's just look at the declarations, which is the first part of the insurance policy. It lists who's covered, what property is covered, and the coverages that you have under your insurance policy. It'll also list your deductible. And if you're looking at a policy that provides wind coverage, your deductible for wind is normally greater than your typical deductible, and it'll be in bold or it'll be in bigger letters. You also want to take a look at if you have flood coverage, if you were affected by Hurricane Helene, and that's normally a separate policy. So you might have two different policies to look at. So step one is find your insurance policy. Let's see what's covered and let's see what deductible you have. Some people have a catastrophic insurance policy, which means they only cover for catastrophes, for things that are unusual and unique that are in excess of $15,000 or $20,000, but it's still important to take a look at what you have anyways. The next step is, do our damages exceed the deductible? So for wind claims, the deductible is typically larger than your average claim, and some people don't file an insurance claim because they believe that the cost of repairs will be below the deductible, and they're afraid that their premium is going to increase if they file an insurance claim. Number one, when it comes to the cost of your premiums, that is trade secret, but it does include a consideration of claims history. If you've never filed an insurance claim in your life, if this is something unique and extraordinary that's never happened before, the chances that your premium will go up, probably unlikely. However, it also takes into consideration other factors, such as the fact that you might now be in a high-risk area, considering the fact that thousands of people are filing insurance claims. So even if you don't file an insurance claim, your premium could go up anyways. When it comes to whether our damages will exceed the deductible, the insurance company, they're conducting their investigation. You should be conducting your investigation as well. You should be your own advocate. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. I have a home. It looked okay, but I saw shingles lying around and I wasn't sure if they were mine or my neighbor's. I had 3 different roofers come to my home to confirm that my roof was perfectly fine. So if you have damage to your roof, do not rely upon an insurance company. Do not rely upon a public adjuster to find you a good estimate of the damages. You should be seeking out contractors and roofers to give you estimates of what is going to cost to fix your property. So you could use OneBook, you can use any other resources that you have in order to find reputable contractors. You're going to want to find 2 or 3 different contractors for your roof, your interior damage as well, and that will give you a fair assessment of whether your damages will exceed the deductible. A word of caution, do not do this slowly. There is a policy provision in all policies. It's Section 1 conditions. It's towards the beginning of your insurance policy, and it requires you to give timely notice of a claim. Some insurance policies require immediate notice of a claim. So if you dilly-dally and take your sweet time, or you're just struggling to find contractors because so many of us need them now, don't delay in filing a claim. An insurance policy says you should file a claim if you may have a loss for which the insurance will apply, not if you absolutely do and you know the extent of your damages. So take that into consideration as well, as you do want estimates. You're going to be working towards that as the insurance company is doing their investigation. But if you believe that your policy is going to provide coverage because you exceed the deductible, you should file a claim as soon as possible. Worst case scenario, your damages don't exceed the deductible and you move on. So filing a claim is a 2-step process. Is step 1, let's see if we have coverage. Step 2, consider if it's worth it considering your deductible. Now, when you file the actual insurance claim, you're going to talk to someone who answers a phone. This is not the person responsible for your claim. This is not a person with knowledge. This is a person who is just retrieving information from you. They're going to ask you your name, your address. They're going to ask you the date of loss. So for a date of loss, this is a significant date, and it's an easy one to figure out. It's either the date of landfall of Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton. And they'll ask you about the damages that you have. There is some conversation online about don't use the word flood and avoid saying that word at all costs because it triggers a different type of policy and your coverage may be denied. This is true, but insurance companies aren't idiots, and neither are the people they send to your property. And if it is flood damage and you're trying to hide that, they're going to figure that out pretty quickly. It's pretty easy to distinguish the difference between wind-driven rain and flood water in your home. So they ask you what happened, tell the truth. Tell them the date it happened. Tell them what actually occurred. Sometimes you might have damage to the exterior of your house, the roof, for example, and you don't know of any damage inside the home. They're going to ask you if there is damage inside the home. Unless you are an engineer or a contractor or a home inspector or someone who is qualified, the correct answer to is there damage inside your home is I'm not an expert and I don't know. I can't see any, there's nothing visible to my eye, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll give you an example. I had a property that had a tree